All right, so we are back, and guys, listen. The summer of 2022 is supposed to be YouTube boxing season. Starting to look like YouTube backup season because nothing, and I mean not one fucking thing, is going according to plan. We all know about the Jake Paul-Tommy Fury fight. That didn't go down. To be fair, Hasim Rahman Jr., way more interesting opponent in my opinion, but Social Gloves 2, Austin McBroom's promotion, he's in the main event with Gib. The entire event may now be postponed and or canceled because Anissan Gib has to come to the United States for more medical exams based off a supposed potential head injury. This, depending on what it actually is, can be serious. YouTube boxing may have just seen the first glimpse of the dangers of this sport. The breakdown, let's go. So first off, Austin yesterday comes out in a video and explains that he might have to postpone Social Gloves 2 based off an issue that Gib needs to address.
I just woke up to some unfortunate news this morning from my team. I don't know how to feel right now. I'm sad, frustrated, pissed off. Austin versus Gib may potentially have to be postponed. Out of respect for Gib, I'm going to let him explain his situation. But again, out of respect for Gib, out of respect for us training our asses off for the past few months, out of respect for the fans wanting to see this fight happen, I'm willing to postpone it if he can explain why. That's all I can really say right now. I'm pissed off.
First thing I want to say is Austin cannot be blamed in this situation. I know, just like you guys do, that Social Gloves and Austin are easy targets, but in this situation, there's really nothing that he's done wrong. So for him to be as frustrated as he is and sounds in that video is completely understandable, especially being almost a week away from your event and hearing this news. It's devastating for the amount of work you've put into a training camp. Your family, your team, everyone's sacrificing for this big payoff, this big moment. And both guys have been doing that, Gib and Austin, and everyone else on this card, and it affects them too. The fact that Austin also said he was willing to reschedule made me think this was a scheduling issue or a visa issue at first, or something that was not able to happen because Gib wasn't able to travel. And then Gib came out with an update of his own and said this.
In 10 days, I had a scheduled fight with one Austin McBroom, July 30th in the Crypto Arena. But unfortunately, I've been told that I have to do more medicals for this to be sanctioned as a pro fight out in LA. So in 7 hours, I'm gonna fly to LA to do these said medicals. Social Gloves have informed me that the fight is not cancelled, it is postponed. And this is not over, son. This is not over.
So we had a little bit of an update that Gib needed to do more medicals. He was trying to get sanctioned for a pro fight in California, which Andy Foster, the state athletic commissioner for California, he is known to be a little more strict, especially with the YouTube boxing, which if you remember back is why KSI and Logan for the second fight that was in Staples had a little bit of a tough time getting sanctioned, especially when that fight was in early talks. They're skeptical, and fairly rightfully so, when it comes to low amateur experience guys getting in with no headgear in a pro boxing match. And that made it seem as if there was a lot of hoopla and drama for nothing. And speaking of drama, Keemstar jumped into the conversation. Apparently, according to Keemstar and then also Austin again, this wasn't just medicals. This was potentially a brain injury. And that is serious.
Apparently, what I'm hearing from my source very close, that Gib, has some type of brain injury, all right? They're seeing what they think is potential bleeding or blood from before. It's coming up in CAT scans, MRIs, whatever you want to call it. It's coming up, and the commissioner is not given the clearance to Gib. So that is what I am being told is what is happening right now.
All right, so you hear Keem there. He says something very specific, and this is something I really want to make sure that we get clear. He says a source told him there was potential blood on the brain of Gib, and that's confusing to say the least. But when you say something like brain bleeding, you're talking about brain aneurysms. You're talking about potential strokes, things that are very serious, and not, again, for a boxing match or anything like that, for your health and well-being as a person. But thankfully, I went to Gib's team and I asked them directly, is there any issue with brain bleeding? Because again, not only should Gib not be fighting this event, he should never fight again if that's the case. And I was assured that there is no brain bleeding going on with Gib from his team to say, no, that's not what this is. Potentially, yes, there is some head injury here, and I'm not exactly sure the severity of it just yet. And that's kind of where we're at. I mean, Austin even came out in a deleted video and said, yes, this is a head injury, and this is why Gib has to come to America.
The truth is, Gib has a head injury. That's the truth. He has a head injury and the commission will not approve it because it's serious. And obviously, I wouldn't want to fight somebody with a head injury because if he gets seriously hurt, then I have to live with that for the rest of my life. He's trying to get a second opinion from a neurologist. Yes, a neurologist. It's serious. To hopefully get approved. But as of right now, he's not approved.
I think we all need to take a second and realize the YouTube boxing scene is very young. And we haven't had anyone really show the after effects of the dangers that arise from getting punched in the head as a career choice. But this may be the first glimpse, because where YouTube boxing differs from real boxing is they haven't been in gym since they were 5, 6, 10, whatever, to train the sport of boxing and learn how to box and how to defend themselves properly for years on end before even taking a match, right? Before even becoming an amateur. And in boxing, yeah, we see brain damage all the time. We see guys that have issues with concussions and things that put them out of the sport for doing it for 10, 20 years, and that's not great, but they're accumulating that through sometimes sparring and the longevity of doing so, but it's over a 10 to 20 year time period, including amateur and pro bouts, whereas YouTubers, we're seeing this almost 2 times speed in which they get into this sport and they basically bypass an entire amateur career to have full-on firefights with other YouTubers that don't have any experience defending themselves. So what you end up having is an all-out brawl where shots are landing and no defense is anywhere to be seen, and in that way the potential for head injuries does arise. And this is something I want everyone to realize. This is the game, and we love combat sports and we love boxing and all these other things, but if you play this game, no one leaves 100%. It just doesn't happen. And this is the first time that really we can talk about this and understand when we say you don't play boxing, this is what we mean. So let's talk about what I think happens moving forward. I doubt this July 30th card goes on at the time it's supposed to, unless there's absolutely nothing wrong and there was just a misdiagnosis or there was a mistake on the CT scan and he's actually perfectly fine. That's happened even recently in the MMA scene through Bellator. So it's possible this was just a misdiagnosis and that Gib is completely fine, or that there is a little bit of a potential for a head injury to reoccur and maybe they need to take a little more time for Gib to heal. And the third one is that this is potentially that serious and that Gib shouldn't be fighting. Either way, because there is a second test going on, or possibly third, I'm not exactly sure, I would assume that this is at least potentially something that needs to be postponed at the moment. So we're probably not getting a fight on July 30th unless, again, these tests come back completely clean and the first ones were misdiagnosed. But yeah, like I said, that's all I got. I hope that Gib is first and foremost healthy. Like, we want our guys to stay healthy. Hopefully that's the case for Gib. Outside of that, I would say by the end of the week, we will know what happens with Social Gloves 2. Is this fight on? Is it off? Is it postponed? Is it canceled? I guess we'll find out.